Pleasant afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of Mikey Live. Today we're going to be continuing a conversation that we started last year regarding a social ill that we face, that of gender-based violence. This discussion started courtesy the thinking of the Ministry of Social Development, right, Housing and Gender Affairs, and they thought it fitting to continue the discussion, of course, focusing on young men as we have our panel today. All right, and we're going to just go through that discussion. I thank the young men so much for being so willing and brave to join us on that discussion on gender-based violence. Of course, we want to say a special thank you to Mikey Live for hosting, and of course, for the contributions of George F. Huggins and Cool Grenada Limited. And of course, we must mention the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. All right, so without any further ado, I'd like to say a special good afternoon to you, young men.
Good afternoon.
All is well?
Yes, of course.
Just briefly, I know your name tags are there, but briefly, name and school that you represent, just for the benefit of the viewing audience.
Right, my name is Eden Frank, and I attend Grenada Boys Secondary School.
My name is Chima, and I'm here representing the GBSS.
I'm Kian Smart, and I'm here representing SAS.
I'm Calvin Klein, and I'm representing St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School.
I am Umar Morris, and I represent Presentation Brothers College.
And I'm Caleb Williams, and I also represent Presentation Brothers College.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And I am Dominic Ferro-Gaspard. I will try my best to be the moderator for this afternoon. Of course, viewers, you are encouraged as well to share, comment on the live. My encouragement to you, though, is please be respectful and consider the bravery of the boys that are representing their noble institutions here, all right? And try to make sure that those contributions that you make are uplifting as well as educational, all right? So prior to this gathering that we have, I saw a video produced or containing the PBC and the GBSS, right? And there's a particular photo that has been going viral regarding the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School. Congratulations, by the way, on your double victory. All right, so let me start with PBC GBSS. What prompted your schools to take that stance on gender-based violence? Let me start over here.
Well, there was a situation that occurred relatively recently, and our school and us decided that it would be appropriate and in the best interests of our society that we as young men, along with the GBSS group up, to produce a video to speak out against gender-based violence and to raise awareness to protect our young women and also women in our nation.
Anything to add?
Going in accordance with what he said, we saw that there was a need for some speaking of the hearing of the voices of the young men, and our principal, Mr. Philip, brought forth the idea to the assembly on a regular Monday, and he wanted it to be an initiative with the next other all-boys school on island, that being the GBSS, and the idea started from there, and we took it and we ran with it, I would say.
Well done, I must say.
Thank you, sir.
Chima, any?
Well, gender-based violence has always been a pressing issue in society around the world, worldwide. It's affected multiple lives. Even here in Grenada, there are multiple examples of those who are targeted just because of their sex, their gender. So it's really no surprise that us capable boys are here today to speak on this matter. And yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much. Anything you'd like to add on that, Eden?
Well, we saw how real gender-based violence was in our Sweet Spice Isle nation,
Yeah.
And it was a dire situation to see that, it was on a high rise. So now, I remember when my teacher, Mrs. Hippolyte, she talked to me, and of course, I want to stand for women, I want to be a part of the solution, not the problem. And I found that, the two boys' schools on Grenada working together to send out a powerful message, that would have struck something. So
yeah,
that's my little sense.
Well done. I must say the production, the idea, the the execution of it was very well done. And we have some future, not only activists, but also actors, coming up. All right. I must, of course, again, congratulate the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School. Right. I know you are not the athletes in question. Right. You do have much athletic build, I must say. But see, you're welcome, man. But that picture that we all saw with what's the athlete's name? Sorry? Darren. Right? At the end of that race, where he could have shown anything at the back of that card, and he chose to send a message to the effect of curbing the surge of gender-based violence. How did that make you feel to know that somebody from your school, your intercall team, representing SAS, portrayed such a powerful message?
It was very refreshing and very relieved to see that children from our school actually took the opportunity to speak out for those who have been victimized by gender-based violence. So it made me feel very pleased with my school.
Keon, I'm sure it must be similar for you.
Yes, it made me very proud, to be honest. It made me very proud. Because in this world where, of course, as Caleb said, the random violence that has broken out, I think it's best to spread the awareness that this is happening, and why not spread it on the most watched Grenadian media that there is. Everyone's talking about intercall, and when honestly we won't expect it. I'll tell you that now. Most of us in the school probably did not even know he was going to do that, and when he comes up and he just puts it out, I think it really puts it out there, and it really is a unique moment in that time, and it really gets out there and gets and reaches out and really tells us that it's a problem, it needs to be solved.
Well done. And again, I mean, he's not here now, but really big ups for doing that and for having the tenacity to stand up for an issue like that. There's an old saying, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And to see you young men here deciding to stand for a cause as curbing gender-based violence, it's really, really heartening. You are young, well-groomed, attractive-looking men, and at some point in time, future as future goes on, you're going to be, partnering up, married, fathers, hopefully, Yeah. Omar is agreeing with me there. Right. How important do you think it is for our young men to be conscious of, that fact of gender-based violence being a reality, and how concerned should they be where that is concerned, especially within their relationships and their children to come and so on? Perhaps I can start with Caleb.
Me personally, before I get into any relationships or whatever, I have two younger sisters. I'm the oldest child, and I believe that when we have a society where gender-based violence is very prevalent, it puts fear into the minds of our sisters, our mothers, and it's gender-based violence happens to majority of women out there, and I believe it should be stopped. And when it comes to having a relationship, I believe that young men should have the respect of women. They should be concerned about women, and you wouldn't want, see, some random boy on the streets to be catcalling your future daughter or your wife or your granddaughter in the future. So I feel like we should be very concerned, highly concerned about the issue, and do everything in our power to fix it and solve it.
I agree. Well said. Omar?
Well, as the question was posed, I would also say that young men, well, not only young men, but men should be very conscious towards gender-based violence, in the sense that it should be alarming and concerning to us that we have to put a stop to this. Many of the men probably that I would say do this act of violate policies of gender-based violence. They have mothers, they have daughters, they have sisters, and I think it should be a wake-up call to them that they probably, knowing that they wouldn't want this to happen to the family or associates. So in that sense, it should be very concerning and alarming, and it needs to be stopped.
Thank you. Calvin?
What Caleb said, right about now, the relationships that these men have it is very heinous with their other significant others, as you would say. I have a mother, I have an older sister, and looking ahead, knowing that I would be in a relationship with a woman or female, whatever, it is very hard to think that I would, violate that woman. And it not only affects the woman, but it also affects the children around that can see what is happening. And what they say, the youth is the future. So I think we should try our best to stop it. That's what I think.
Keon, the floor is yours.
Could you restate the question, just so I could really formulate
No
it?
problem, right?
It's really fun.
So, in light of your future aspirations to become, husband, father, or even in your present context, looking around at what you see, how concerned, or do you feel that young men or men in our society should be concerned, and how concerned should they be regarding gender-based violence?
Very. I think it's been, well, up until recently, gender-based violence has been like watered down. A lot of really, really bad things that happen to women and just women in general just gets swept under the rug. A lot of it. It really comes from finding what causes this. Is it a sexist thing? Is it a cognitive dysfunction? Maybe alcohol, drugs, things like that. And really putting a stop to that. It shows the youth a horrible side of the world in general. And to say on what Umar said about sisters, mothers, all this thing, that is another human being. You shouldn't, base general, you should not be doing that at all. Assault is assault. And gender just makes it even worse. The fact that you're doing that to a woman, to anybody, to a girl, a child, a baby, it's horrible.
That's true.
All right, so I've been really getting this cue from everyone that has spoken, right? That gender-based violence is something that is targeted towards women. I want to just remind everyone that it's gender-based violence. It's not women-based violence. There are a lot of men, lots of boys who face this reality also. From men, from women, from a lot of people also, specifically in positions of like power. So like, as a student looking at gender-based violence, it's really something that needs to be fixed. I don't like to wake up to the news that someone else has been violated, gender aside. I don't like to wake up to the news that someone else that has been let out from prison has been caught doing the exact same thing he was put in for, right? Ruining the lives of innocent peoples, women, daughters, sons, brothers, uncles. I would like to hear that, right? As a future partner, right? It really affects, like, when you want to choose the woman you want to spend the rest of your life with. Personally, I don't really want to have to fix and repair and glue the after effects and the baggage and the remainings of someone who has been broken down due to gender-based violence. I don't want to have to sit with a woman who responds. There's actually a scientific word for this. It's called Pavlov dogging, right? When you have specific cues, which brings out specific responses, right? I don't want to have to deal with those cues as a future partner, right? Even walking down the street as a person as my color, right? And my demographic, I don't want to be seen as someone who has the capability of violating somebody. Boy, girl, woman, it doesn't matter. I don't want to be seen as that, right? So it's really concerning to me, right? It's really something that I don't really want to have to look towards the future where that is still in society, going rampant, and it's not punished as it should be. Like in Grenada right now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is there no capital punishment at all, like death penalty?
We can find that out and share.
Yeah.
I personally don't know exactly where there is a capital.
It's not really in place, and I think that should be fixed, Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. All right, Aidan, anything you'd like to share regarding your concern?
Well, I believe that we should be very concerned.
Right.
Me personally, I'm very concerned, and I'm scared, because yes, I have, sisters, my mother, my aunt, I have friends and whatnot, you understand? I just cannot imagine that, my mother, my sister, my friend, whoever is just walking and they have to, always check behind their backs, you understand? Always have to send that message 2 minutes, you understand? That's very scary. Even, and looking at what Chima also said, you know, it also happens to men, right? And yes, you are a man, and normally people put this little label on men and say that you have to be strong, you understand? No, I do not believe so, you understand? You can be strong, but in order to be strong, speak up, you understand? That is strength. So, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Gentlemen, very, very, very well said. I have to go back to Chima's point on the fact that, you know, gender-based violence affects both genders, yes? But we do, as we hear a part of this discussion, acknowledge that women are more so disproportionately adversely affected by it. But strong point indeed, and we do appreciate you bringing that to the fore. All right. Just a quick question before we take the break. I just want to get an idea from, you know, your circles where you are. Not to get too specific if it happens home or not, but in your lifespan, right, within your communities, would you say that gender-based violence, you know, is prevalent there, as in something that you have seen? You know, you don't have to go home with it, but has that been something that you have witnessed, you know, around your space, wherever you are from on the island?
So, me personally, well, I grew up somewhere where it's not really as rampant for children to see. I don't know if sometimes we know it happens in private, and people are very good at hiding things. So I would say not really. But when it comes to, well, not my friends in general, but when you hear people talking on the block, and when we talk about gender-based violence, we always think about attacking and such, but there's also verbal and psychological violence that can be applied. And when you hear men, and sometimes women, objectifying other people, their bodies and such, it makes you wonder what could be happening in their relationships at home, what could be happening with their friends, their partners, and we should crack down on it.
Great. I mean, like building on what Caleb said, right? The psychological and verbal thing. I want to mention it now. If you don't like me, I can leave. You know, but I find it very prevalent, right? The objectification of women, the driving, the hypersexuality, especially in the music genre, right? So me personally, right, from my name you can tell, right, I'm not Caribbean, right? But not just Caribbean, not just Indian, but like around the world, the westernification of the music genre that has gone from something to keep you calm, something to relax on. It has become such a mess, really. You pop onto YouTube and so I was talking about this violence and hypersexuality and so on. So I would also say that is also a part of gender-based violence, because then if that's what you're listening to every day and you see a woman on does it not connect? Like, how are you watching something like that and associating yourself with people who declare and glorify and praise that kind of behavior, and you claim to be a normal person yourself? Like, it doesn't really add up. Also, I don't want anyone around me who I talk to, who I am friends with, to be associating themselves with those kinds of music and genres of not only music, TV shows, movies. Like, how would I walk into a theater, right? And then the whole thing is just I can't really deal with it, right? So yeah, it's kind of very prevalent. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are due for a break, so we're going to take a few minutes and then come back in with the discussion that we're having here with the GBSS, SAS, and Presentation Brothers College on the topic of gender-based violence.
Jonathan, I'm tired to tell you about this drinking and gambling problem.
Woman, why are you really telling me? Just leave me alone for my please now.
Jonathan, but the drinking of the rum not working in your favor.
Well, I just tell you.
Hit she boy. Does she feel like she could tell you what to do?
That is not strength, Jonathan. Strength is the storm within a man that still chooses calm. Remember, Remember when you were growing up, you promised yourself you would never do this.
Watch. Relax it.
I have a question. How many more would have to carry that strain? How many more would have to suffer in pain? For these women have endured this for far too long. Beating, raping, killing are all actions that do not belong.
I have a question. Why is she gripping her keys like a blade? Why is she sending her live location afraid? For this use have been far too prevalent in our waters, hindering the lives of many of our young, promising daughters.
I have a question that we must now face. Who would be the ones to call for change? Who dares to stand for change? What role as men do we play in this situation, securing the lives of women in this generation?
Yes, gentlemen, young and old. To this call, we must be bold. Caring for women should be a key priority for men who are powerless and those in authority.
How many more?
So welcome back, viewers. Thank you again for joining us as we continue this discussion on gender-based violence. This program is brought to you courtesy the Gender-Based Violence Unit within the Ministry of Social and Community Development and Housing and Gender Affairs, as well as, of course, it's brought to you through the kind courtesies of Mikey Live and the kind sponsorship of the George F. Huggins Company Grenada Limited, Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. Again, I am Dominic Gaspard, and I am absolutely impressed with the cast of panelists that we have this afternoon. Such a rich discussion. Thank you so much again for being here. We have the Grenada Boys Secondary School, the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School, and of course the Presentation Brothers College. So gentlemen, my next question, and if I may start with young Aiden over there. What are your thoughts as it concerns how society deals with the problem of gender-based violence?
My concerns on how society deals with gender-based violence is we brush it off. Majority of the time, we brush it off. I have seen instances where a female has been passing by, and let's say she passed by a block, and there are a group of men, and these men objectify this woman, and they harass her. That is very prevalent in our society, and I think that as young men, as youth of Grenada, I think that we should work towards, rebuilding that, how Grenada was, you understand? Right. Make Grenada great, not great, but greater. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Love
right?
that.
Make it greater.
It is a great island, but
exactly.
Indeed I agree that there's
exactly.
much more that we can do.
Exactly, yeah. And me being a GBSS boy, Chima, PBC, SAS, you understand? Us being youth, we can easily influence others, you understand?
Yeah.
Right, so those building up on what he said,
yeah.
As previously I stated before,
If you do not like what I'm saying, I will leave. On that, I would like to apologize to all the students here, what I'm about to say, but it is true. All right. He talked about the woman passing by a block and getting catcalled and so on. Let's not take it too far, right? If you were to come to a regular school, I'm not going to call any names. If you come to a regular school on the island where you have mostly the senior boys, or not even senior boys these days, random Form 1, Form 2 boys, right? And let's say we have a woman who's like naturally gifted, right? God took his time on that woman, right? And she were to pass by some of these classrooms where these students are liming and not even paying, like they're not even paying attention first, right? But then the second they see this woman, they start to, like the catcall, like the staring, the glaring, like it's really prevalent among like our school society to bring it close to home, right? So that's also one thing that I really noticed. Another thing is that I kind of disagree with him on a little bit. Although we, as a society, we brush it off,
it's not like we don't care, all right? There have been some advances towards stopping gender-based violence or kind of reducing it or punishing the perpetrators, all right? But I think we're doing like a very bad job, like as a society, punishing the perpetrators. As I said before, the capital punishment should be like back, they should kind of bring it back. But I think that really the businesses who are promoting these artists, as I said before, the companies who are throwing out these movies, like all this content, the hypersexualization, the kind of violence that the aggression, the glorification of murder, killing, all these things in the songs, the movies, and whatnot. Anybody who's being sponsoring, making money from these things are a part of gender-based violence, whether they like it or not, directly or indirectly. And that's something that you can also see as you walk into the classrooms. The artists that they mention, the songs that they sing. I'm sorry, yeah, about that. Yeah, right. The lot of what they talk about, right, is not really like as a student that's about to write CXC, right? It's just now they stand and study the whole last year, the same thing, and yeah. So it's really that's the way it's been, right? Yeah.
Keon, Calvin, what are your thoughts society-wise? The gentlemen are saying that, you know, there's a cultural problem that we have, and perhaps some of the behaviors that we see are learned behaviors. Can we unlearn them? What are your thoughts?
I might talk a little long, yeah, but so we speak on it being a cultural thing. I'm not too sure about the culture. Of course, culture plays a role. You know, some of the music, some of the people that we see do it. I know. I think most of us have seen when you walk through the street, your mother, hey, sweet, calm down, you're 50. But I think it's more of a witnessing thing. When you really see it, it's not like a cultural thing in which we wanna practice that, we wanna be that. No, we don't want that. We see it. We're not sure if it works. Some people try it works for them. I don't know how. They continue, they keep doing it, and they go on and on into their old ages, and they just continue doing it. And then on top of that, with what society is doing about it, I've seen cases of other places, not only in Grenada, but around the world, cases of women, well, not really women, but both of them being completely manipulated, sexually assaulted, going against their wills. And these things happened years ago, and they never speak out about it until years later. And by that time, the perpetrator's already gone. Most of the time we don't find them. No justice is taken. Sure, maybe some social justice, and the person's canceled. They don't get to come back on. They don't come back. Oh, guys, it's me again. I'm still doing stuff. No, they don't get to do that anymore. But I feel like there's no the law should really get involved there, right? Like, a lot of these situations have just been, as I said before, just swept under the rug. I myself, in my community, no calling names, no saying no address, no nothing. So I've seen some and heard some horrible, horrible things happen in houses either near me, far from me. You can hear it from the outside, and it's not nice to hear. And just hearing it alone is disgusting, man.
Yeah, just going off what he said. Yeah, we as a society, we often brush it under the rug. And us being from basically the same community, I've witnessed it a lot by myself, and it's very disgusting to know that people that I know, friends, family, would see a young lady walking by and would extremely objectify her in front of my face. And not to say that us as a society are not doing nothing about it, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah. Oh, just to go a little bit ahead, he said about the people in his life being objectified. I saw a statistic. Most of us probably seen a statistic of like it's 1 in 3 women.
Yeah.
I myself, I was like, okay, this statistic, it seems very truthful. It seems very true, but I've never really seen it. I can't really speak on it. In a year, it took a year. In a year, I seen it happen twice. I said, okay, we need to put a stop to this. And it's the same year that the horrible, horrible thing happened. I'm like, okay, something wrong is happening. I don't know where the spike came from. I don't know how we went so far up. We need to bring it back down. Sorry for coming back, but.
That's all right.
All right, well,
yes,
in accordance with what the other panelists said. I would say we're below standard in terms of what we can do concerning gender-based violence, one being the cultural aspect of it, but another important one. As Chima said, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I would say there are laws in Grenada, but poor enforcement of the laws in Grenada. And that's a major issue in probably, or something that also feeds the gender-based violence. So perpetrators constantly do it and they pay no price. There are no repercussions taken in probably bringing justice back to victims of the situations. And we need more enforcement rather than just having laws stated in our constitution book. That's my take on it.
Well, for one, I think as Grenadians, we move at a very fast pace. Something happened one day, but the next day, we forget it. And when it comes to things like gender-based violence and attacks against women, these are things that we should be talking about constantly. And with the recent spike, yes, advocacy and discussions have increased, but I believe that these things should happen year-round, like non-stop. This should be a conversation that we are continuously having in schools, in workplaces, online, amongst our friends, our families. These are things that we should be talking about, and these are things that we should bring up in our familiar circles. And I also think that we as a society, we tend to, we tend to bring down the victim. A lot of the times when we hear when a girl gets raped, sorry to be so vulgar, a girl gets raped, the people go say, oh, she go and look for it. Or you see how she dressing, she look for it. But I pose a question, who gives you the permission to be the judge, the jury, and executioner? Nobody has all the rights. Just because she decides to wear something, yes, that's might not be appropriate. But sometimes men don't wear things that are appropriate. We walk around shirtless all the time. We have pants real short, pants real tight, showing off everything. But you don't see women going around, well, majority of the time you don't see a woman go around and rape a man or something like that, or objectifies a man. You don't see women be like, you, smart man over there. That never happens. Or let me not say that never happens. It doesn't happen as much. Right. So we tend to victimize, yes. The victims tend to face more ridicule than the perpetrators, and I feel like that's something that we should most definitely stop doing. Because, not because a girl, say a secondary school girl, had a boyfriend, and she link up with him. Things happen. You're not saying, like, things doesn't happen, but things does happen. Sometimes it gets out of control, and then we give a lot of backlash to the girl. Say she gets pregnant, she gets kicked out of school, she can't go to school, she gets ridiculed, her family don't want her no more, and then the boy just running around scot-free, nothing happening. And
we want to see more consequences be levied on,
yes,
right, the perpetrators, and as we say, stop victimizing the victims. Yeah.
Just a little conflict with what Caleb said. I kind of disagree with him a little, right? Talking about how these women, like, we have no say to be the judge, the jury, the executioner. But let's say that as an intelligent, young, handsome man, as you have said, you called us, right? Yeah. I walk into an alley.
And it's evident.
Yeah, it's evident, very evident, you know. I walk into an alley by like 11 p.m. with a transparent bag full of cash. I'm going to get robbed. It's common sense. Like, why would I walk into an alleyway by 11 p.m., right, with a transparent bag full of cash and expect to leave there with my head on my shoulders? Like, that doesn't make sense. Not to put on these women that they have to, although yes, you have to manage yourself, you have to know your art, you have to, self-defense doesn't really work, you know, but you have to find backup, right? You shouldn't be walking late in the night by yourself and you have your headphones plugged in, or you listen to music. Like, that doesn't make sense. You're just asking to be taken, right? But I also think that as a society, we should learn education, right? Like, we should teach and like raise the awareness of what's happening, right? Because not only the women are at fault here, the men are at fault here. but the women are at fault to some point, because you can't assume and you can't just walk through a particular dangerous area knowing what's going to happen to you if you do a specific thing and still do that specific thing, thinking that the dangerous thing, the harmful thing is not going to happen to you. Like, it's counterintuitive. It doesn't really work that way. So I would suggest that to combat this problem, instead of victimizing the people who are on the losing end, we learn how to properly punish and eradicate the behavior itself. Right. Starting from culture, starting from young age, like we're doing a good job here, young men and all that. So that's what I think, yeah.
Well, I thank you for the commendation as well. All right. And I agree to a large extent of the points that you're making. I must, though, from my opinion, when it comes to violence against women or anybody, as a matter of fact, regardless of the slip-ups that you might have made in terms of your poor judgment, someone acting violently against you, there's no excuse for that. Right? I can agree to an extent that you can take charge in terms of taking measures to mitigate certain ills coming your way, but should it happen, right? I remember seeing a while back, I think it was on TikTok, showing there was a program showing the attire that some women were wearing when they were attacked, right? And it was not the skimpy skirts and belly out, and so it was, work clothes and nighties and things that we might find unattractive in the large public domain, but they were still attacked regardless of their attire at the point in time. So it shows that there's a bigger problem afoot that we need to work on. And you guys have already started to answer my next question. So we just fill in the blanks. But when it comes to young people, and I have young men here in particular, what do you think is some of what is the role of young people, young men, in helping to cure this scourge of gender-based violence? Right? I know, again, the discussion has already started around that. I just want to center it on young people, young men. I see Kian is urgent to go.
I think it's like, I think it just falls on 4 words: look, but don't follow. You could see this thing, horrible, horrible thing. And if you in your, that's not a right mind, but if in your mind think, I want to do that. What do you mean? No, you don't want to do that. You should, in your right mind, you should not want to do that. Look, analyze, don't follow. That's not something you should do. You should keep yourself to a normal, healthy, and safe standard, and not follow in the perpetrators, the attackers, the sexual assaulters, the rapists, all these things. You should not follow in the footsteps of those. I think those 4 words have a lot. Look, but don't follow.
I mean, just building upon this point there, I think he may have said something really logical, right? But I think he's missing about 33-ish% of his statement. Look, analyze, don't follow, and correct. Yes. If you see something or someone who's going down the wrong path, or see someone who's going to get themselves into implications, or you have a friend who's particularly tending to that kind of behavior, you as a person could, have a talk with him, like have a talk with her, have a talk with whoever on this kind of topic, and kind of lead them on the right way, because you never know, you may have saved someone's life, you may have saved someone's career, you may have saved someone's innocence, right? So I think that if you see something, right, and you don't follow them, but you also do not make an attempt, you also do not correct, you're also like an accomplice. That's why if you see a crime, you don't report it. Right. You're also kind of liable under the legal system, right?
Say something.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Omar.
In terms of what I guess the guys have probably brought on today in terms of the objectifying of women, I would say we've heard the comments saying probably be the change, make a difference. So in terms of the objectifying aspect of it, it's probably something we do subconsciously. We label women, and that, I think, influences how we view women in the long run, and probably causes men to, I guess, do more of these heinous crimes, and in the sense that we should stop what we're doing, things that we probably may view as harmless, probably, I don't want to label or say what a lot of the guys we see on the block in school probably label these women are for sensitivity reasons, but I think we are very aware of some of these words that we use to objectify women, and we probably see no harm to it, but over time, it's in our minds that probably, well, not in our minds, but in some of the minds of these perpetrators, that it's maybe okay to, like, women are their property, and that should be a thing that there should be a clarion call for probably you start, be the change. When you see it happening, probably a friend objectifying women, we should stop and make them aware that this needs to stop.
I mean, just adding up on to what he said, right? He talked about, what did you say again? I kind of forgot that.
In terms of objectifying.
Oh yeah, I got back to my point, kind of forgot. I have it back. So I think really it's natural instinct for a man to be attracted to women. I don't know what your taste is or what you're like, but I like women, right? And I think there should be no thought police that should arrest people based on what they think or how they look or how they view or their taste in women, right? So it's a natural thing, it's a natural instinct, right? I think that the whole issue with gender-based violence and crime and all these kind of things is your reaction to what you feel or what you think or what you're going to say after that or what we do after that is really what you do in reaction to what you think, right? So I don't think, personally, there is any problem with looking at a woman and say, oh, she's kind of hot, she's kind of beautiful, you know, but like you going...
The conversation is that we don't look at them and say that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't say, but it's not wrong to, we're built to think that as men. I mean, if one thinks something else, actually you are. We're built to think that as men, and it's not wrong to do that. It's kind of what we do after that that kind of makes that counts, you know.
I think Eden wanted to make a contribution there as well.
Right, so as you were saying, we're not saying that like a woman is hot, you understand, she's beautiful, right? But we shouldn't, go ahead and act on it and then make it turn into harassment. That's the thing, you understand? I would not stand there and listen to my friend, my brethren, you understand? Say that, okay, that woman be hot, but then you go ahead and harass her now, and then she's clearly not giving you that attention. She's clearly not paid no business to you, you understand? Do not, absolutely do not go ahead, harass her, and then if she, reject you or whatever, go and cuss her up or anything, you understand? Right. That's disgusting, you understand? And, certain things we hear, this new thing, you understand? A woman is not a thing. We are all human beings, aren't we?
Right.
You understand? So, yeah.
Yeah, the language and looking out, yeah, agreed. Was it Calvin, you wanted to add something as well?
Well, what they said, yes, everybody has the ability, they have the right to make a comment, everybody has the freedom of speech, but it is the continuous harassment, that is the problem. And adding on to what Caleb and Umar said, yeah, we as the youth shape the future, and I think we should, as Kian said, look, do not do what they are doing, and take the opportunity to be a voice for the voiceless. Raise awareness.
Well said, absolutely well said. Now, all 6 of you and your schools have, championed the cause of, trying to end gender-based violence, especially as it pertains to women and girls. Gender-based violence on a whole, we agree, but as women and girls are more disproportionately adversely affected, we are taking that stance. What sort of support would you like to see from the wider society to strengthen your advocacy?
From education. Those people at the block, they're not really educated enough to know that these women that they are referring to as Eden said, things. Like the human beings also, that woman has a mind, she has a goal, she has a career, So I think proper education, like one, is the most basic thing, right? Second, I think mannerisms also has a role to play as well. Because even if you are properly educated, you can still choose to do the wrong thing because you feel or you cannot control yourself enough to realize or to act upon the information that that woman is a human being as well as you, that can think like you do, right? So I think that proper education and that the mannerisms also a thing to play. I also think, and I'm going back to it, said before, it might sound redundant, but I'll say it still. The punishment of these perpetrators needs to be done and needs to be done in such a way, in such a like boastful way to say that as a society, we are not tolerating this. So that we make it so that the victims of these particular, I'm not saying it's really wonderful and okay for a woman to come 40 years after it happened to say this man did this to me, this man did that to me. I mean, because there are also women out there who use this as like who use these allegations to get money out of influential people when we know that didn't happen. But that's by the side, right? Like these victims need to have like a voice, and when you see that these perpetrators are being punished, strongly punished, they can now come out, and the things that they were scared to say or scared to reveal can now come out to the public, and these people who are doing these malicious acts can be punished.
Right. Aidan, in terms of, how would you like to see society strengthen your advocacy as young men, as representatives of your school? What can society do to help you in your fight against gender-based violence?
As my peer here, Chino, said, more education, of course, number one basic thing, you understand. People on the block, they're not too educated, and, most of the times they were past, juvie delinquents who dropped out of schools, peer pressure, they follow bad company and whatnot. Also, the older generation as well, right, can project, whatever, can project that, disgustingness onto the younger generation, if you understand what I mean.
Right.
Right? And I just believe that educating all, right? Educating all, I think that, government should also speak on it,
right.
Countries and whatnot.
A holistic approach to informing, educating, and hoping to change that that culture and that behavior. Right. Let me come down the line, Keon.
I don't have much to add. These two kind of took everything. But I feel like it's to find out why. Why do these things happen? So what is it? Find out what up here makes these type of actions okay in the mind of that person. Is it inebriation? Is it alcohol? Is it drugs? Is it growing up with that wrong mindset? Is it the education, as they once said? Or is it something else entirely? Is it a bias that they grew out of a trauma or something else? I feel like finding that out and trying our hardest as a society to get rid of that cause will probably be our best bet in ending gender-based violence.
Fair enough.
Well, yes,
Calvin?
I would say education is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But as well, you can therefore be educated, but still make the wrong choice. Men need to learn how to control their emotions. Yes, I said it. We need to control, our emotions. Mm-hmm. So I think that we should provide programs. We as young men to take counseling, to reflect on our actions and try our best going forward.
And then you mentioned a big point there on counseling. Typically, as a Caribbean people, we don't gravitate to counseling very easily. And I think the statistics are even worse for men in the Caribbean. Yes. Right? So that's a very strong point that you're making there, to seek counseling to help deal with whatever past or even current traumas that we're facing, so that we can integrate better with the society that we are part of. Omar?
I think the point I make probably ties into education, but covers a different aspect of it, and also may not be the most influential, but we can still give it a shot. There's still probably hope for my idea in terms of probably reducing gender-based violence rates. And that being probably, we've heard a lot, well, probably growing up, as let's say older boys or bigger boys, set the example. And in sense of that, probably I'm calling to, well, higher-ups, people in authority, to probably come out and make a clarion call, a bold statement that as men, this is what we should not do, or in the positive aspect of things, this is what we should do, right? So I think that we need some examples being set by men, well, not only limited to men, but in this case as men being more perpetrators than that of women, right, to make the bold call, make the clarion call that we should put an end to gender-based violence in Grenada.
Well said, well said. Caleb, probably can have a contribution from you before we go to our next break.
I don't have much to add, but I just want to say something that my dad and my teachers always say: charity begins at home. So when a boy or a man sees his father or his uncle or his older brother doing such acts, do you not think that he, as your son, would then take that and say, okay, maybe it's okay for me to do? As much as we can get education, sometimes education from your school or your teachers or your counselors is not enough. Although it is a very important thing, and I believe that education, the education system should step up and should provide these areas where people can speak freely and talk about these kinds of things. Charity, again, I say charity begins at home. So a father should talk to his son about the behavior that he has with young women on the street. A mother should talk to her daughter, and families should speak with each other about what is going on and how they should be acting in social environments. And I also want to see what Omar said: the higher-ups and the ministers and the politicians, they should also have a role to play in setting the laws to protect our young women, our children from these kinds of acts being happened.
Agreed. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And our business places, I mean, I must commend Huggins on the stance that they have taken to join in raising awareness and supporting initiatives like these. I would like to send a call to other business places that have I think everyone has the ability to, in some way, shape or form. So once again, thank you, Huggins, for such a phenomenal job in supporting initiatives like these. We take a quick break. When we come back, we have a guest with us, Grenadian royalty, if you can call him that. Right. So we take a short break, and we'll be back on this discussion on eradicating gender-based violence. See you soon.
My name is Aaron Alexander from the Presentation Brothers College. Gender-based violence is never okay. Protect yourself, respect others, and speak up when you see harm. Silence supports violence. Your voice can stop it.
On behalf of the GBSS alumni, I would like to speak about gender-based violence and its importance. Equality is for everyone, and gender-based violence needs to be stopped.
Good afternoon. My name is Zoe Thomas, and I'm a representative of the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School, and I'll be talking about gender-based violence. From my perspective, education, continuous awareness on GBV, speaking out instead of being quiet will help stop the cycle of GBV. Peace out.
Jonathan, I'm tired to tell you about this drinking and gambling problem.
Woman, why are you really telling me? Just leave me alone for my please now.
Jonathan, but the drinking of the rum not working in your favor.
But what I just tell you?
Hitchy boy. Does she feel like she could tell you what to do?
That is not strength, Jonathan. Strength is the storm within a man that still chooses calm. Remember when you were growing up, you promised yourself you would never do this.
Watch. Relax it.
I have a question. How many more would have to carry that strain? how many more would have to suffer in pain? For these women have endured this for far too long. Beating, raping, killing are all actions that do not belong.
I have a question. Why is she gripping her keys like a blade? Why is she sending her live location afraid? For this issues have been far too prevalent in our waters, hindering the lives of many of our young, promising daughters.
I have a question that we must now face. Who would be the ones to call for change? Who dares to stand for change? What role as men do we play in this situation, securing the lives of women in this generation?
Yes, gentlemen, young and old. To this call, we must be bold. Caring for women should be a key priority for men who are powerless and those in authority.
How many more?
All right, and welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much again for joining us this afternoon on this special edition of Mikey Live to discuss gender-based violence. Of course, we have been having a lovely discussion with the boys from the Grenada Boys Secondary School, St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, my apologies, and the Presentation Brothers College. Of course, with us this afternoon to share some remarks, we have perhaps Grenada's favorite son. At least in more recent times, we have world and Olympic medalist and Commonwealth champion in the decathlon. My brother, Lyndon Victor, is here to share some remarks as it relates to gender-based violence. So thank you so much for agreeing to be here. Thank you so much for, again, Huggins for, contacting their brand ambassador and one of our favorite sons to, grace us with your presence. So go right ahead and share what comes to mind when, we talk about this pertinent issue of gender-based violence in Grenada, and what's your takeaway? How do you feel about it? And what's the message that you would like the nation to take away from today?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. And I feel honored to be in the presence of these young men, listening to them. The way that they articulate themselves, the way that they spoke, I'm actually encouraged. I am very, very encouraged by what I've seen and heard here today. I think we can talk about the gender-based violence and how to stop it, but I think this is where it starts. I think having these young men understand what exactly is gender-based violence and taking that with them from here into the schools, into their homes, into their environment, and educating others as to how you go about to eradicate gender-based violence. I am very encouraged. I think I'm a bit senior to those guys, and I've had different experience. And I will say this though, gender-based violence happens no matter your age, no matter your class in society. You could be rich, you could be poor, you could be beautiful, not so beautiful. It doesn't matter. It happens. And one of the young men said, finding out why it happens has to be the biggest discussion that we should have. Because everybody have their opinions as to, oh, well, she was wearing a short skirt, or she was walking down the wrong place at the wrong time. But why does it happen? And how do we go about to not just educate, but, my question would be, why do these young men share this or see it this way and others don't? Like that was the biggest question that I had. Why are they answering the questions like this? Is it because of the way that they are brought up? Is it their educational level? Is their level of intelligence? Or is it just something that they learned from their parents?
Right.
I think that that is one of the questions that I have been asking myself. Why can these young men sit here and articulate themselves that way and talk about gender-based violence that way? And why can others not do it and not see it that way?
Yeah. I mean, they have been absolutely remarkable. And that question does resonate with me as well, to see that we have young men that have that sort of outlook on life, and I know that we have more within the respective schools and the other schools that are not represented here. But the problem of those that do think the way that they think, and why is it that they're so different, and what is causing them to push into the realm of violence and aggression and so on. That is a serious question. And thank you so much for bringing that question. Thank you so much again for being here with us and showing again your support. I was with you on the march. The little warm up was was one thing, but just to see people like yourself and other notable figures in society standing up for a cause like this is highly commendable of you, sir, and we thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah.
All right, and again for the young men, before I go into the next question, I'd just like to leave some information before we end, right, regarding how you can reach out and share your concerns, commendations. If you see something within your society, if you are a victim of gender-based violence and you'd like to report any and all instances, you can feel free to reach out to the Gender-Based Violence Unit. Their helpline number is 417-6167. Again, 417-6167. You can call, text, WhatsApp. We also have the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. Number is 440-3788. That's 440-3788. And of course, the Royal Grenada Police Force is ready and waiting to assist however best that they can. The Special Victims Unit is 400, as well as you can call 911 or 440-4739. All right. Gentlemen, before I say officially thank you for being here, I have just one final question to probe your minds and to get some responses from you. I know you're going to continue to give us some rich responses. But so the question is, what are some of the things that boys, young men like yourselves, right, can do to fulfill their responsibilities to promote nonviolence and protection to everyone from gender-based violence? Right? So what are some of the rules what are some of the things that you think people like yourselves, so we spoke about the wider community, but young men, what can you do to stand up for a cause like this and to promote non-violence and reduce gender-based violence in our community?
So, personally,
I was going to start on this side. Go ahead. Shima, you have a very good debating spirit. If you're not already on the debating team, I'm going to speak to Mrs. Hippolytus so we can make that happen. But go right ahead.
So, personally, right, I think, first of all, as young men, we should strive to get ourselves into positions of authority with this right mindset. Like everybody here, it is something that we have to look at in society. Right? If you look at politics as like a general genre, you can see mostly old men, old people who are barely hanging on to life, people who really shouldn't be there in the first place. Some countries, the president can't walk. What are you doing there? I feel like more of these young people like ourselves who share the same mindset, who share this same right, correct, morally correct ideology should be the people who are more into politics, people who are in positions of power and authority, because when we are in those places, those stations, we can then influence people on a greater scale. Like, if it's better if I hang up a poster in my corporation, or like just one ad from X or from Twitter or from Instagram could completely outshine posters you hang up on the streets or something that you do. So I think that people like us, everybody here, should be putting ourselves into that particular category that we can be looked upon like role model and that sort of thing.
So very soon we'll see more of you, following Lyndon's footsteps, to be in that light and be able to share content as such. Aiden?
Right. So You know, as young men, we are always on social media, right? And as youth, right? I believe that we can spread awareness and, you know, promote, you know, how to stop gender-based violence, you understand? Many young people, we use TikTok, Twitter, X, Snapchat, whatever, to do wrong things. You know, we cyberbully, and look at this. We harass women online as well. The wrong things are happening on these platforms. We can better ourselves, right, and better society by using these platforms to spread that awareness, right? Speak about the situation that happened last week. Spread that awareness. Let the youth, and not even the youth alone, others, grown adults, middle-aged, whatever, everybody, right? The message can be powerful, coming from somebody like me, right? If I send a message out, Chima gets it. Me and Chima are friends. Chima will look at me now and say, that was very influential, right? So I believe that's my take on that.
And that's a big point. I've been in education for close to 20 years, and students have a way of communicating to students so that they understand. You know, as much as I might know, or Mr. Philip, you know, whosoever it might be, you know, you guys have a way of communicating to each other in a way that you get the language, you know. So that's a very, very salient point made there. Keon?
Okay.
How would you suggest that, you know, young people like yourself, you know, do more to take a stand?
I think if we were to take a little bit from everyone, right? He said charity starts from home. Young people, and also, okay, so he said charity starts from home. He said that we should, what did you say? I forgot what he said, but he said a very good word. It starts with us, right? It starts with the youth. Another thing I also said, look, analyze, don't follow, and he said build upon and become better. These three things that have already been stated should become a foundation onto which young men and young boys in general should see and follow. Look, analyze, don't touch, be better. Charity starts from home. And become someone people follow for a better cause, right? If we were the idols and the Lyndon Victors of today, and we become the people that they follow, it stops. If we start from when we're fathers, when we see our younger cousins seeing their parents, we shine them away, we protect them, it becomes better. And when we start a slogan or something that can really take hold in the world, like, look, analyze, don't follow, be better, it can really show an impact on gender-based violence. And that's how we as young people can really get in there.
I mean, that was excellent. I was just about to add that to what Eden said, right? Because I think personally that it's like a war on gender-based violence. It's not something, as much as I would like it to be, to end like tomorrow or even next month or next year. I don't see this. It's a process. Yeah, it's a process. It will take some time because personally, like contrary to what they might have said, Mr. Victor and my colleague Keon, I think that there will always be a cause for someone to commit gender-based violence. I think there will always be someone who is willing to go out of their way to make somebody's life more miserable. Whether it be for money, whether it be for desire, whether it be for just to hear that scream, right? Just to look at their face and see the harm being done to them, to see how they react to it. Like Ted Bundy didn't kill more than 40 women because he desired all them. No. He was addicted to that thrill, that drive he felt when he committed those harms, right? So I think that it's something like, because it's easier to actually train a child than to repair an adult. So I think that that's what he said, very excellent, that we should become the people who are modeled with these right ideologies, to be modeled so that people can follow, the next generation after us can become better, and we just build upon that.
Mm-hmm. But I must say, you guys have already started to be, role models. I going back to my days in school, you guys would be, giants of men already, So kudos to the efforts that you have made thus far. Let me take it down this way and I'll perhaps end with Lyndon in the middle. Caleb?
I just want to say we should, as young people, talk to our friends, work in our tight-knit circles, our close friend groups. I know my school personally champions on building leaders, and we always strive for excellence. So we should strive for excellence in our academics. We should strive for excellence in our behavior. We should strive for excellence in all that we do and champion the cause for speaking up against gender-based violence and not harming our men, respecting each and every person to the way that you want to be treated. And I feel like as young people, we should keep having these discussions amongst our friends, amongst our family, amongst strangers on the street. If you see something happening, speak up against it. The youth are our future, as we all say. The youth are our future. So we should become the future that we want to see. So we should emulate all the right values, be leaders, be excellent in all that you do, and you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes you may slip up, but it's always how you get back up and how you build on your actions.
Well said, well said. Omar?
My response to that question is, I think we should normalize setting the example by standing up for what is right. Chima and Caleb kind of made the point that we should strive to be, let's say, probably something better, or probably men of authority, so people would want to hear from us more, but in the same sense that the reality is not everybody is going to be men of authority. So if we take into the mindset of normalizing, setting the example by standing up for what is right, constantly in our minds, having it that, okay, gender-based violence is not okay. We know if over time, probably you have for example, you have an alarm set for 5 o'clock. Let's say, if you keep that alarm for the next 3 months, by month number 4, your body's programmed to waking up for 5 o'clock without the alarm. And that same mindset can be taken into my point being normalizing, setting the example by standing up for what is right. And I think that's a key step, or something that we can do as youth our age, who probably, it goes into our, kind of applies to those probably who are probably less influential than those in authority.
Well said. And the point of the alarm, well taken as well. I have an alarm that does the same, and even without the clock, I'm sure it's the same for Lyndon as well, having that routine. And it just goes to the point that, if we train ourselves in certain habits and cultivate certain behaviors, before you know it, it just becomes second nature. How we respond, how we relate to our female counterparts, and even the men around us, it will become, as I said, second nature to just do the right thing as we go on. All right, Calvin?
Yep. Well, just going off of what Aiden said, let's continue to use social media. We use it every day. Let's continue to use these social media platforms to raise awareness, continue raising awareness. Let this moment, this issue, not just be something that we talk about today and forget about it tomorrow. So I will not just say us young, children, youth should continue to raise awareness. The viewers as well should also try their best to share, keep on sharing, trying to be a voice for the voices, like I said before.
Well said, well said. Well, gentlemen, I thank you so much for the rich discussion that we've had. I would let Lyndon just, say his congratulations to you as well, and any other take-home messages before we wrap up this afternoon segment.
Yeah, before I leave and answer the question, I want to leave you guys with this. I heard a lot of your answers referring to the block and the guys on the block. But gender-based violence doesn't just happen there. Gender-based violence happens at work, and especially with guys that have money and they have power and they have influence. Some of the nicest men that you meet that protect the women could come from the block. So I don't want you guys to leave here thinking that it happens on the streets and it doesn't happen in the workplace, or it doesn't happen in the school, or it doesn't happen. It happens everywhere. It doesn't matter if she's a boss, she's a secretary. Some people feel that because they're a man, that gives them power. So whether gender-based violence needs to be tackled everywhere, not just on the block, not just in the school, not just in the workplace. I really wanted to drive that point home to you guys. Secondly, I want to commend you. A lot of people may have different opinions of what you shared, and it took a lot of courage to share what you guys had to share today. And I am really proud of you. If I can leave you guys with one thing, be a star in your role. If you're good at IT, share on social media. If you're good at influencing your friends, do that. You don't have to be Chuma. Chuma don't have to be Omar.
Chima, yeah.
But once you are a star in your role, you are influential. You are influential. No matter if you are the smartest person or you could be the greatest athlete, but you are influential. So be a star in your role and what God has called you to be. And don't try, and that is how you're going to spread the message. Because if you're not authentic, if you're not who you are called to be, you would never share the message the way it's supposed to be shared. So again, gentlemen, I want to applaud you guys for taking the opportunity. I don't even feel like I am worthy to be amongst such great young men, such young men that can articulate their words so profoundly. I have to try to find words now. So again, I am really, really proud of you guys.
Very,
and continue
well.
to
Gentlemen, give yourselves a hand as well. You guys, you have represented yourselves well, your schools, your families, your communities, Grenada on a whole. I think we are all safe to say we are all proud of the young men that we are raising. If this is a good representation of the larger batch, right? We just have to work on, those loose screws, those 1 or 2 loose screws. But if this is a representation of the larger batch, Grenada is in safe hands. Young men, it has been an absolute pleasure being with you this afternoon. Once again, thank you so much, Lyndon, for agreeing to come by. Thank you so much, Huggins. I must plug Huggins very, very bigly, as we say, right? But thank you so much to Huggins, agent for Angostura, for the general support for today's provision of Angostura chilled beverages. We will have a few of them in a little bit, right? We have the bitters, the blood orange and bitters, pear and bitters, sorrel and bitters. So once again, thank you so much to George F. Huggins for supporting this very important conversation. Once again, thank you so much to Mikey Live for agreeing to broadcast and carry us on his radio waves and internet waves. Thank you so much to the gender-based violence unit that has, come up with this idea and has, put all the legwork in to make such a thing happen. Thank you all. Thank you, viewers, for being online and sharing your positive comments. Feel free again to commend the boys as many times as you'd like to. They really have shone this afternoon and showcased very well what Grenada can be. And I'm lost for words. You guys have been absolutely brilliant. So once again, from me, Dominic Gaspard, thank you so much for being here with us, and we do wish you all the best. Have a good evening. Well done.
Jonathan, I'm tired to tell you about this drinking and gambling problem.
Woman, why are you telling me? Just leave me alone for my please now.
Jonathan, but the drinking of the rum not working in your favor.
But what I just tell you?
Hitchy boy, Does she feel like she could tell you what to do?
That is not strength, Jonathan. Strength is the storm within a man that still chooses calm. Remember when you were growing up, you promised yourself you would never do this.
Watch. Relax, yeah.
I have a question. How many more would have to carry that strain? How many more would have to suffer in pain? For these women have endured this for far too long. Beating, raping, killing are all actions that do not belong.
I have a question. Why is she gripping her keys like a blade? Why is she sending her live location afraid? For this use have been far too prevalent in our waters, hindering the lives of many of our young, promising daughters.
I have a question that we must now face. Who would be the ones to call for change? Who dares to stand for change? What role as men do we play in this situation, securing the lives of women in this generation?
Yes, gentlemen, young and old. To this call, we must be bold. Caring for women should be a key priority for men who are powerless and those in authority.
How many more?
Shatters lives. Let's break the cycle. My name is Zalika Peters and I take a firm stand against all forms of gender-based violence.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Violence shatters lives.
Violence undermines our sense of self-worth and self-esteem. Let us take a stand against all forms of violence. My name is Nala Sam, Little Miss Grenada, the Spice Child, and I take a firm stand against all forms of gender-based violence.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Violence against our women and girls, men and boys, is totally unacceptable and inexcusable. My name is Father Edward Mark, Minister of Religion, social worker, counselor, and a strong advocate against violence. Therefore, I ask Grenada to join with me to take a firm stand against violence of any nature.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Feels it are the ones who truly knows it. But we can show empathy. Think what it feels like to be a victim of violence. If you don't like it yourself, don't do it to others. I'm Samuel St. Bernard, Planning Officer in the Ministry of Social Development. I take a firm stand against all forms of gender-based violence.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.